Hey guys, Matt here. Welcome to Learn to Discern. As many of you already know, I do have a separate channel that is entirely dedicated to teaching, and every so often I like to take one of those videos and post it on here when I think it will be particularly helpful and beneficial. So that's what I am doing today. In today's video, I am going to be teaching about the principle of putting off and putting on as found in Ephesians chapter 4. And I'm doing so because I think this is the sort of principle that many people have heard about and they think they have a good understanding, but I think it's really easy for us to fall short of what it looks like to biblically put off sin and to put on true righteousness. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get to that teaching, if you guys want to help promote Christian content here on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe not only to this channel, but please subscribe to my teaching channel as well. Okay guys, so we're here in Ephesians 4 for our text today, so let's go ahead and read through the passage, and I'll stop a handful of times along the way to do some teaching. So starting in Ephesians 4 in verse 17. Now this I say and testify in the Lord, that you must no longer walk as the Gentiles do in the futility of their minds. So the Gentiles there, a reference to unbelievers. Don't have a manner of living that is consistent with the unbelievers. Verse 18. They are darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to their hardness of heart. They have become callous and have given themselves up to sensuality, greedy to practice every kind of impurity. But that is not the way you learned Christ. Assuming that you have heard about him and were taught in him as the truth is in Jesus, to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. So that bottom part is really where we are focusing here, starting in verse 22. So we see this concept that we are supposed to put off our old selves and put on the new self. So what is this a reference to? Well, obviously, as Christians, when you are born again, you are a new creation in Christ. You are a new person. The old has passed away, the new has come. That is very consistent. However, we know that just because you are a new creation, that doesn't mean that you still can't have bad desires or that you can't sin. In fact, Galatians 5 talks about this very clearly. This is in verse 16. But I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other to keep you from doing the things you want to do. So why do Christians still sin? Because we're still in the flesh. We are new creations, but we still have that old flesh hanging on to us, fighting, and we still have desires that are not godly. And so we are told very clearly we need to put those things away, and we need to be renewed in the spirit of our minds. So we know we need to renew our minds, and we need to put on the new self. Okay, so we see this concept of put off and put on. But the reason that I'm making this video is that I think a lot of times we focus on put off and we don't focus as much on put on. So we think I just need to stop doing the bad things, but that is not biblically what it looks like to put off and put on. So what does it look like? Thankfully, the next section is going to clue us in. We're going to see it. And I think this is really great, and I hope it'll be a blessing to you in your walk with Christ. Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and give no opportunity to the devil. Let the thief no longer steal, but rather let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, so that he may have something to share with anyone in need. All right, this is great. Verse 28 shows us very clearly what it looks like to put off and then put on. So let the thief no longer steal. So that's put off. If you have been stealing things, you need to stop. Don't do that anymore. No longer steal. That's the put off. But what does put on look like? Put on says, rather, let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, so that he may have something to share with anyone in need. So it's not just about stop doing this sinful behavior, such as stealing, there is something positive that you are supposed to be doing instead. Don't just put that thing off and then move on with your life. Put that thing off and then put on the true righteousness, the way that you should be living. So for a thief, it is you need to work hard. You need to do honest work so that you can share with someone in need. In fact, I've gone through a couple of biblical counseling classes at my church, and the leader of our biblical counseling ministry at church, he says, when is a thief no longer a thief? It's not when they stop stealing, it's when they start giving, when they start working so that they have something to give. So we see put off, but also put on. Now, pay attention to verse 29 and see if you see something similar here. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. So what's the put off and put on? Obviously, the put off is let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths. If you have poor speech, get rid of that, put that aside. But what does that mean? You just stop and you don't say anything? No, you have to put something on. You need to talk in a way that is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that you may give grace to those who hear. So it is always this idea of don't just stop doing the bad thing. You need to actively pursue the righteous thing. And in fact, I didn't stop to talk about it because I wanted to get to those two examples because they're really great. But you see the same put off, put on principle here in verse 25. Therefore, having put away falsehood, put it off, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor. So don't just stop lying, start speaking the truth. There's something you need to do. And you can see, I guess, last example here in this little section is starting in verse 31. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you. Those are all the negative things. But what do you need to be doing instead? Well, along with all mouths. Sorry for that part. What do you need to be doing? Verse 32. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. So it's not only get rid of the bitterness and the wrath and the anger and then you just sit there neutrally. Instead, you actually have to be kind to people. You have to be tenderhearted. So again, I'm not teaching this just so you'll have a better theological and intellectual understanding of what it means to put off and put on, but so that you might think through how you might need to apply this principle in your own life. Because I know for me, sometimes the temptation is to say, I've been doing this thing over here that's bad, and I need to stop doing that. Well, it's true. By the power of the Spirit, I need to get down to the root of that issue, and with God's help, and as I'm striving for it, I need to put that thing to death. But there is also something positive that I need to be pursuing. There's also something that I need to be putting on. So maybe you can think about that for your particular situation. What sins have you been struggling with? If it's stealing, you need to not only stop stealing, you need to work hard, doing honest work so that you can be generous and give to people. If it's filthy talk that's coming out of your mouth, you need to not only stop using that filthy language, you need to start using the positive, the right words, encouraging words that are going to build people up. And there are tons of other ways that we can apply it. But let's make sure, friends, that we are people who are not only putting off sin, but we're putting on true righteousness. All right, guys, I hope today's teaching was helpful to you. If it was helpful and you want to help get content like this out to more people on the internet, please take a second now to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, God bless.